Is this thing on? What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic week, just like I'm having a fantastic. Got to be pretty funny. So hold, please, while I reset my rig, because this thing just completely blew out. All right, here we go. Fun stuff already happening. Excitement is a brewing. Hopefully that didn't set the tone for the show. To you, my brother, what is up? Glad to see you in. Fast Man's checking in. What is happening, everybody? All right, so it's been a little while. Haven't done a live show in a little bit, but been a little bit busy. What have I been busy with? Well, a few things. First of all, a couple of weeks ago, took the little Miss Revlon to the drag strip, mainly trying to finish up collecting data on the transmission tune. For you guys that are in the know on transmission tuning can be a little bit of a fickle thing, because what works in really crappy DA doesn't necessarily work in fantastic DA when you're getting transmission tuning sorted out. The reason for that is a little nasty gremlin called predictive shift algorithm. And what that basically means is the faster the car accelerates, the quicker the car is going to want to shift. That's not a shift from like 1 to 2, like it's going to bam, bam, complete the shift quickly. It means it's going to initiate the shift more quickly. So let's say, for example, you're used to a car that is going to try to shift at, say, 6,200 RPM in really nasty density altitudes. Really good density altitudes, when I'm going out with that. The car may tend to shift a little bit sooner. It thinks you're going to hit a certain RPM before you will, and so it'll initiate the shift quicker. At any rate, was going out, getting some data on the car in about the worst DA I could try to find. And it's real important to do that because that is going to be the absolute highest shift point that the car is going to hit under a very heavy load. Well, as I was doing all of that, my fuel pressure sensor decided to check out. That's right, fuel pressure sensor croaked, and that's never a good thing. Especially when you go to find out that, or you come to find out that that piece is not part of your powertrain. So therefore, it's not covered under warranty. I'm gonna let that sink in for just a second. Oh, by the way, if you're not familiar with what a fuel pressure sensor is, or looks like, I should say, it is a molded in piece to your fuel rail assembly. It is a non-serviceable unit. So basically what that means is your fuel rail has to be replaced, and the kit replaces both the passenger and the driver's side, the crossover tube, as well as the offending sensor. So that's right, I got to go buy a new sensor, which, by the way, if you haven't caught on yet, if it includes the fuel rails, you know it's going to be expensive. We're talking about $400 worth of crap to fix a sensor that decided to quit working. Now, I was data logging the car at the time, and funny thing, it started acting odd, and it was giving the same symptoms that cars will typically give when they're just a little bit pissed off that you just tuned them. Some Hellcats, mine included, right after a flash, it's still going through an adaptive process right after the flash, because you're clearing adaptives during the flash. So if you don't drive the car initially for a little bit, you're going to get some wonky stuff going on, kind of some harsh shifting, things like that. Car won't necessarily make the best power right after the flash. My car was doing the same thing because I had literally just made a change at the drag strip. Unbeknownst to me, coincidentally, about the same time, my sensor started to go bad. Did not throw a check engine light until about the third pass. So yeah, that was a real treat. Let me tell you all about that. But hell, it still went tens, throwing a check engine light. Bypass still hung open, and ejector duty cycle going through the roof. She still decided she was going to run tens for us, so that corner's secure. But at any rate, giving you guys a heads up as far as what's been going on with the car. As far as data logging goes, I did get the car fixed. got the car to the drag strip, and was able to get even worse density altitude. By the way, it's funny to hear guys talk about, man, I've got to have worse DA. I got to have worse DA. Only nerds like us, right? But anyway, that was the idea. The density altitude on Air Density Online, the forecasted DA was like 2,700. Probably checked in around 24, 25. The grains were like 130. I think the lowest grains pass that I made might have been 125. So to put that in perspective, so what that means is if the grains are above 100, it's considered to be very humid. It was 25% more than very humid. How about that? 30% more than very humid. So gross were the conditions, and I was actually kind of stoked for this, but so bad were the conditions that at 11 o'clock at night, you're still sweating. There's just no getting around it. There's no escaping the funk, and that's how bad the conditions were. So in this situation, I don't care what density altitude it was. I can tell you that the grains made it feel like you're in a sauna, and that is gross. And so I was able to get the car. Actually, I ran a best of a 10.7 flat in a, oh wait, hang on. Let me make sure my rig's not gonna fly off and knock us out again. I was able to run a 10.7 flat and a 10.7.1 with a host of 1070. There it goes. Son of a bitch, I swear. Freaking earthquakes around here. You'd think, right? Hang on, time out. Hold the phone. Everybody, talk amongst yourselves. Hang on, let me fix this damn infernal contraption. Damn it. That's a piece of crap. All right. Technology, right? Anyway, so getting back to it, hopefully that didn't happen again. I got it set up pretty good now. I thought I had it set up pretty good last time. Anyway, so yeah, able to get to the car in some just gross conditions, finding out where the shift point is going to be in the absolute worst case scenario, knowing that the lower the DA gets, humidity starts to drop. The car is going to want to shift a little bit sooner because of the predictive shift algorithms. And you'll notice that if you know the car is set to shift or to complete the shift at, say, 6,000 RPM, one thing that I noticed during the fall was that my car was consistently shifting at about 57, 58, really on the 1-2 shift. And then progressively, as you went through the gears, it would the shift point would gradually increase as the acceleration rate decreased. So it would be, 57, 50, let's say for the 1-2, 2-3 would be around 58, 50. And then 3-4 is really where it would start to kind of level off at about 6,000 RPM. So anyway, that's what's been going on with the car. Now, one thing to tell you guys before I get into that though, hang on, let's say what's up with everybody. And Fast Man, TU, my brother's in here. Good to see you, my man. Fast Man's in. Speed Freak 93 saying he's in. LXX Jimmy, my man. Catfish is in. What is happening? Blackbird's checking in. TU, the GT500 has 10,000 horsepower. Yeah, it does. Little Shetland Punies. Let's see. TU, or that's what they'll have us believe nowadays. You better believe it. No, that's the thing. They want you to believe that thing is going to be the next best thing to free stuff that's fun. But here's the problem realistically. I don't care how fast the GT500 is. When the price point is that high, it's unobtainable for me. So, I mean, if you're talking about the GT500, that's great. You might as well be talking about a 720 at that point to me, because I can afford both of them roughly equally as poorly. Marlon's saying I bought a first edition. Oh, hang on. What the world is going on here? Yes, normal, please. This thing is driving me nuts. Hang on. Let's see. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties here. We're just having all kinds of problems around here. What do we got? Hang on. God dang, this is awesome. All right, we're just have to work with what we got here. Man, gravity is kicking my ass tonight. Let's see. Timeout. What is this? There we go. All right, so we'll get back in here real quick. Timeout. Timeout. Rewind. Hit the reset button on this. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. Gravity's giving us hell. Let's see, Marlon saying, I bought a first edition 09 Challenger, 195,000 miles. What do I do first in restoring it? Wash it, change the oil. That's the main thing. Typical normal stuff. Maintenance items. That's the stuff to look out for. And then, of course, check everything electrical. Make sure you don't have any exposed leads or anything like that. The basics is what you need to get started with. LSX Jimmy saying the Whipple car is back at Alex's shop. Let's hope HP Tuners update solves some issues. What he's talking about is for Whipple cars, this is this Diet Coke or Coke Zero that fell, by the way. I'm waiting on it to, yep, there it goes. See, man, it's just going to be like that tonight. First time back, and fate's just giving me a run for my money here. HP Tuners has made some changes to help the guys with the Whipple cars. Whipple Hellcats especially. There's some tuning issues you can run into. HP Tuners has been working closely with some of the better known tuners that have been bringing these issues to light and trying to sort through that. So hopefully, Jimmy, that car gets knocked out here real soon. Mike Corleone, Professor Mason, good evening. Got the arm flex. I like it. Good evening, sir. Frankie's got the fist bumps. I like it. Let's see. Shawnee, good evening, B. Thanks for guiding me in my Hellcat purchase. Took the plunge with an 8-speed red line Hellcat. So if you guys don't know, I want y'all to welcome Sean E. into the fold. He's just got himself a, I believe it's a 2016 red line red 8-speed sunroof Hellcat. Real happy for him. He's already out there having fun with it. So Sean's saying, thanks, B, for being my test bed. Stock time's coming soon, and a dyno. Local speed shop wants me to buy a leg maker cold air and 370 gears eventually. Your thoughts? Hold up. Hell no. 370 gears in a hell, no. And as far as a leg maker goes, no, don't do it. Don't even waste your money. Don't waste your time. Unless you're just there for the sound or for the look, then in that case, then by all means go for it. But don't expect to pick up any power, not with a stock car. I've done extensive testing, not only with stock Hellcats, but with modified Hellcats, going from stock airbox to open element filter to stock airbox with no filter, all the way around. And if you're just going for the performance, stick with the stock Hellcat, stick with the stock Hellcat filter. If you are looking for the sound, pick up the cheapest open element air filter kit you can get. B. Woody sells a good one that sounds amazing. I say go that route. And to be honest with you, if you get tired of the noise or just the maintenance thereof, swap your other stuff back in and call it good. But do not even allow anybody to tell you that 370 gears would be a good idea in a Hellcat. That's about the worst mistake you could make. 309 gears, on the other hand, a very good idea. Smoking 05 saying, howdy, Mr. Mason. Howdy, Smoking. Luke Richardson, what do you think is the best supercharger money can buy? Best supercharger money can buy. It depends on the application, wouldn't it? I mean, if we're talking about what are you doing with it? Are you doing top speed runs? Are you doing, in other words, half mile, half mile, full mile events? What are you doing with it? The best supercharger money can buy is buy a car that already has a supercharger on it. That's the best supercharger that your money can buy. And then if you want to upgrade, then upgrade to whatever system works within your combination. So for the Hellcats, the best supercharger money can buy is stock. The best supercharger money can buy for a Corvette, I would say, would be, a D1X or something along those lines. Something that plays into the strengths of the combination as well. Something heavy, you want that positive displacement style supercharger to get that tank rolling. Something that's already light, and you can afford to dump and hemorrhage torque down low. You want all your power up top, so it just depends on your combination. Dr. Div saying, what up, B? Missed the first few minutes. What was the check engine light for? Check engine light was for a jacked up fuel pressure sensor, which, by the way, is not covered under warranty. I'll go on a rant here and on that and give you guys some good news on some other stuff coming up here in a minute. I just want to get with you guys real quick. Jay saying, my dude, the Magical Mopar Wizard be amazing. I like it. Thank you. LSX Jimmy saying 370 gears and an 8-speed cat. Way too much gear, my man. And a leg maker ain't worth the cash. Factory box assembly flows more than enough. Absolutely. Frankie saying, need some guidance. I have a Challenger Scat Pack manual. I'm looking for some more power. Where should I start? Man, place to start right there. More power. Hellcat airbox, Hellcat filter, Fastman throttle body, and a tune, and that's it. That's about all you're going to need. It'll put you right where you need to be. From there, it's just going to be driver mod to practice launching the thing. Let's see. Symphonic saying, did you see Stang Mode's video today and all the trouble he stirred up over the GT500? I have not caught that. I've been in my own little world for about the last week or so. Been busy here around the Mason household, so I'll have to catch up with him. Shawnee saying, Frank, yeah, talk to Shawnee. Frankie, I've got a bunch of Scat Pack 6-speed 392 parts for sale because I just bought the Hellcat. Absolutely. Let's see. Dr. Div saying, LSX Jimmy, 8 speeds like gearing. In my experience, I've had good luck on 410s and the Rams. Even my turbo truck likes it. Yeah, but not in a Hellcat. 370 is way, way too aggressive for a Hellcat. Again, 309 is about the most aggressive you can go. And running a 17-inch wheel and tire combination also. Jay saying 392 gears in his 19 Ram, 8-speed truck responds really well. I love the 392s in my truck. You also have to remember trucks have a significantly taller tire. So a lot of that gear is eaten up just in the larger circumference of the tire. Works out really well. Symphonic saying he had a video of a Ford engineer talking about the engine making 850 horsepower, but then due to the parasitic loss of the supercharger, it was 760 at the crank. Now everyone thinks it's 850. Funny. Yeah, that makes about, okay. Well, you know, it's Ford, so what do you do? Hayden's checking in saying, B. Mason, what's up? What's up, Hayden? Thoughts on Jay Green, MMX, and Arrington cams for 5.7 NA build? What would be your pick, and do 5.7s need a square horsepower and torque numbers, or should one number be higher? Typically, I'll start at the bottom. I'm going to unpack this in reverse. Typically, they're going to make peak power. Depends on the cam, really. Stock, they're going to make a little bit more torque than they do horsepower, typically, but most of them are fairly square. The trucks are, at least. The cars, I think, make a little bit more torque than horsepower. But with a cam, you're going to make more horsepower than torque. And as far as whose cam to go with, I tell you this. A custom grind is the best way to go. I wouldn't go with any of those. I would go with Texas Speed if you wanted to get an off-the-shelf cam. They've got some great grinds. And I can tell you this, as somebody who designs camshafts, they've got some grinds that are very close to some camshafts that I've put together that will work just fine. Smoking 05, why not manually shift at whatever RPM you want with the paddles? The reason for that is, well, there's two things. One, the shift is a little bit more abrupt. It's a little bit more harsh, and you don't get the slip in between shifts to help carry the shift. In these tanks, you kind of need a little bit of slip on the shift. Two, it's pretty difficult to get consistent every single time grabbing shift points. The main thing here, the big takeaway though, is the way that the programming is for the shifting with the paddles and with the floor shifter. The paddles basically run off of the track shift protocol, which is a bit more harsh. It's very good for closed circuit racing, but not good for drag racing. The floor shifter shifts off the sport protocol, which is better for drag racing and where you'll get the best results. Now, as far as what override you have, you've only got a couple of hundred RPM override before you're going to hit a fuel cutoff anyway. So better to just go ahead and put a program in the transmission that allows it to shift where it's supposed to and let all those, electrons do their thing. Jay saying, in his opinion, the only cool thing about the GT500 is the dual clutch, which I think is the one uncool thing about that car. But I get it. It's more technologically advanced transmission, and I can understand the allure and the appeal of that. My only concern with that transmission is going to be long-term durability. Will the thing hold up to street driving? A lot of folks have discovered, much to their pocketbook's demise, that DCT style transmissions don't play well in everyday driving. They can be jerky. They can be a little bit unsettling in some cases. So I'm not saying that the Ford is going to be that way. I'm just saying what has been the case. And look at some of the supercars. I mean, Google supercar DSG transmission drivability, durability, anything along those lines, and you might find some things that'll kind of open your eyes a little bit to what some of the issues are that guys have with those transmissions, especially if they're driving them hard, because you only get 20, 30, maybe even 40 at the most 1,000 miles out of some of those clutches. Again, jury's still out. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Mustang is not going to last. I mean, far be it for me to even say that. I have no evidence to support that claim. I can only go off of past performance from other performance vehicles. Jeffrey Benderzan saying, what up, B? I made it back in here again. A buddy of mine went to the track with his Hellcat a week ago in the scorching heat to try out his new red eye hood. He got 14 passes in. He got 14 in. That's pretty good. I got about 8 in the other night, 7 or 8. I mean, and I was hot lapping mine too. It was hot when I was running mine. Toby Ram is asking, what up, Brian? What wheels is Revlon wearing? Well, this evening, Revlon is wearing some Dark Stars in 17 by 9.5 in the rear and 18 by 5 in the front. Those Dark Stars are shod with Mickey Thompson ET Street R's in the back at 305 45 17s. In the front are Mickey Thompson 28 by 6 LTs. Oh, wait a minute. Shawnee, thank you very much. Appreciate the contribution to the cause. Thanks for the insight on the Hellcat. They say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. I will agree with that. I'm enjoying my Redline Hellcat 8-speed because of your inspiration. I'll be following closely your mods. Well, thank you very much, man. Hopefully we can go on this journey together, and we'll see your car running mid-10s before you know it on that stock tune. Just let that DA come down a little bit, drag pack on the car, yank a little bit of stuff out of it, and you'll be doing just the same as me. Christian McVeigh saying, A.B. Mason had the chance to see and sit in the 2020 Supra last night. The car looks so much better in person, feels sweet. That car is getting way too much crap. I'll tell you what, man, I like the Supra. You know, there's an ass for every seat, guys. And just because, I might be into muscle cars, it doesn't mean that I can't appreciate the neatness of the Supra. Now, I don't think that it's worth the money, and I'm not going to get overly excited about a detuned version of the same car in the Z4. However, if the same car would be a little bit less in price, it would probably get my attention, especially considering the fact that BMW engines are notorious for being underrated. There's going to be plenty of upside to those cars. It's got a ZF 8-speed, although I'm not sure which one it is. I don't think it's it might be an HP70 for all I know, but the reality is the car is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be great for the scene, and it sets the stage and it sets the tone moving forward. I think that's really more the point of that car than anything else. Jeffrey Bender saying, into the night temp got down to 74 degrees and he was hoping for a best pass. He ran out of gas 3/4 of the way down the track. Yeah, so that's one thing to remember, guys. If you're going to the drag strip, consider 1/4 of a tank empty. That's your reserve level. When you get to 1/4 of a tank, get that thing to at least half a tank. Don't make the mistake of dropping that thing way too low, thinking that you're just saving weight and all of that. You're not. Trust me, you're not saving. You're saving inths of a percent. And keep in mind, you go into fuel starvation, still running full timing. That can lead to some problems. So keep those tanks at half full. Again, you get that thing down to 1/4 tank. Time to get that thing to the gas station. Fill her back up to at least half a tank before you start ripping on it. Never any less than 1/4 of a tank. Shawnee's saying open air element seems like it would pull hot air into the engine. It does. Stock airbox seems like a little bit of protection at least. It does offer some of that. But again, you know, I've seen this over and over again. There's some that actually sound really good. The JLT intake sounds great. Any of the inexpensive, just the tube and a filter style setups are going to sound the best, especially one with a big old honking, you know, open air, open element filter with just a tube going to it. You know, typically, you know, they're cheap. It looks like they used you know, coat hanger wire to, you know, hang the thing or whatever. Look, those are the ones that sound the best. If you want to hear your supercharger really well, that's the way to go. But for performance sake, it's just not there. And save the argument, well, so-and-so says they picked up whatever horsepower. Oh, God. Okay, so here's how that works. You put the car on the dyno, hood's open, fans are blowing fresh air right across this open air filter. Yeah, it's going to be pulling in cooler air, and it's going to run better. Sort of, at least. Might pick up some power there, but once you close the hood, you got all the under hood heat to deal with, and that's when things go south. I will say this, though. I've never actually seen one go slower at the drag strip. If it did go slower, you lose maybe a tenth, okay? So in practical power, you're not really losing a lot. And if you're chasing a number, then yeah, you want to go with the system that's going to get you the best number. But if you're just out there having fun, playing around with the car, getting to know the car a little bit, hey, run whatever you feel it puts the biggest smile on your face. To me, that's the biggest point of these cars. It's, you know, the performance part of it's great. The numbers are fun, but just know that you're just not going to pick anything up with those types of intakes. Let's see. Luke Richardson asks, oh, hang on. I messed up here. Wise Oracle's asking, thoughts on the Grip Tech pulleys, worth it for belt slip, or is there a better method? Man, listen, people have been using pulleys on these things. It doesn't matter whose pulley you're using. Go with Metco and call it good. If you want to go with like the Hellraiser style that makes you feel better to have a slipper type or at least a clutched type of pulley, go with that. But the rest of it, don't. There's no need to buy into a gimmick. The basic stuff already works really, really well. And if you're getting into a point where you've got to have something going on your pulley to make it not lose boost, then you're running the wrong tension on the belt to begin with. It's a Band-Aid. It's not a cure for anything. Luke's asking, what's the best supercharger for a 4-point? Great. Forgot that part. Yes. Well, Magnuson, I love them. I go with the Edelbrock E-Force. I think makes another good system for those, but I know Maggie does. Great if you're running it in a truck. If you're doing something in a car, like it's a swap or something like that, D1X and a big intercooler and letter E. Dr. Diff saying, I've got one of those fuel pressure sensors for a Hellcat you can have. Came with the Hellcat injectors that I sold. Man, I tell you what, I would have loved to be able to hit you up on that. She's already fixed, but yeah, the problem is that if you buy it separately for a fuel system, that's one thing. But to fix this thing, I would either have to switch to a full system and then convert the sensor to be removable, or just suck it up and I had to buy the whole kit. So that's what I did. But I appreciate it, brother. Frankie Alvo saying, thumbs up, I like it. Shawnee's saying, the top of the Hellcat valve covers looks different than my 392. What is that ridge? Looks like something with fuel, talking about that orange valve cover area. So what that is that is a raised area in the valve cover. And the reason why it's there is to allow any of the crankcase vapors a bit of a cathedral to go to before they're drawn in through the system, as opposed to sitting right there above the valve train where you're going to have more splash. Even when those are baffled, at the rate this thing is evacuating your crankcase, you can drag some of that oil in there with it. So what they did is, in development, they created the cathedrals in there to give it more volume to help separate some of the oil out and not have it all go through the engine. It's not at all to say that that's a substitute for an oil catch can, but it is there to help in that endeavor, so to speak. Let's see. Oh, wait, hang on a second. Timeout. James Hutch, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Thank you for the contribution to the cause. James didn't put a question or comment with that, but I'm just going to say, James, I do truly appreciate that. Thank you very much. You get that back over here. Make sure I got to get back where I was. But James, thank you very much, man. I truly appreciate that. Let's see. I'll be right back with you, Luke. I get my fan on because it's hotter than hell. I'm going to melt because I'm delicate like that. Uh-oh. Hang on. All right, getting back to it. Let's see. We're just having all kinds of fun tonight. Let's see. Luke Reach saying, I'm keeping the fuel injection. Nothing against cars and trucks and carburetors. Just think fuel injection is better. It is better. Let's see. Symphonic saying, yeah. Now everyone is saying, oh, Ford said it was 760 to the wheels. It's a mess. Man, I don't know how they're getting away. It's just, look, guys, there's no secrets to any of this. None of it's been released yet. Everybody's saying that the GT500 is going to do this, that, or whatever. Quit trying to speculate. Let's just get the car on the road and see what it does. Let's get the car on the track and see how well it runs. And I'm not just talking about drag racing. I'm talking about closed circuit. And then let's keep the car around for about a year or two and see how well it holds together. Who knows? This thing could end up being the shining beacon of hope as far as durability goes. I mean, I'm not going to bet my life on that, but, you know, it could be. And to be honest with you, I kind of hope that it is. I'd love to see the GT500 do well because I'm a huge GT500 fan. But for every time that I've said how much of a fan I am of the GT500 in general, right? And that I was actually looking forward to this GT500 coming up, and only lost interest, by the way, when I found out that it didn't have the transmission choice that I wanted, which was either a manual or an automatic. It's this hybrid thing in between, which takes some of the, takes some of the life out of the car, in my opinion. That sanguineous feel that you're just never going to get with a flappy paddle transmission. It's just never going to be there. And that's why I lost interest with the car. Every time I've given that car a compliment, it's weird because I'll get comments from people just saying, don't line up your Hellcat against the GT500. It's going to wax your ass. Don't line up with it. I'm like, bring it, son. Do you think it really bothers me? I mean, look, that GT500 is going to have a freaking handful dealing with my car on a drag strip, so I'm not worried about that one bit. And then people want to talk about mods on the GT500, saying, oh my God, once we start talking about mods, the modded GT500 is going to run nines. Look, slow your roll there, hot stuff. First of all, you only hope that it does. You don't know for a fact. And number two, probably more to the point, you start throwing gobs of power at a heavy car with a DSG transmission on a sticky track. You're asking for something to explode. So by all means, please buy one of the cars. Shell out the dealer add a tag. Throw hella cash at that thing to make more power. Throw the sticky tires on it. Take it to a well-prepped drag strip in low DA and have at it. In fact, I've got a track rental coming up in January. If anybody gets their hands on a GT500, you have got a free slot at my track rental, but you got to have it on, and I don't want to see it on radials. I want to see it on a full drag pack. Let's see what that thing will do. I doubt I'll have any takers, but it will be probably the best DA of the year, and it always is the best DA of the year on my track rentals. That's why I do them when I do them. So at any rate, it's your opportunity to set a record. Hopefully it's not a record for how many parts blew out from underneath your car. Dr. Div saying, love my Texas Speed camshafts. I've installed over 30 of them and run them in my Ram, and it's making decent power. Yes, sir, it is. They are good camshafts. Hayden saying, thank you. Didn't know Texas Speed was offering cams. I know the Eagle heads flow a lot, but should they be polished and smoother, like, for example, what you recommend with the intake manifolds? No, the heads don't have to be worked at all. The intake is mainly just being cleaned up, and really it's blueprinting that intake. The casting flash is what you're up against with those intake manifolds. James Howard saying, good to see you again, my friend. Well, my 5.7 is out of here and going with a complete dropout 6.1. I like it. Love 6.1s, man. They just don't get the love that they should. My favorite all-time engines. Symphonics. And all the Ford guys on his channel are screaming, Venom kills Demon again. God, let them scream it. Dr. Div saying, still need to call you. Call me tomorrow. Smoking at 5, great info on the shift points. Absolutely, it's a lot of fun for sure playing with them. But again, it takes a little bit of time to get it just right, and that's why a lot of tuners, if we're talking about transmission tuning, they don't really like doing it because transmission tuning is so subjective. A lot of tuners will just say, look, I will adjust wide open throttle and I'll give you some improved downshift points, but that's it. Don't try to get me in the mix of partial throttle stuff. Unless they've got something already put together that they know works, they're not going to want to mess with it. And believe me, everybody's a little bit different with how they like their cars to shift, especially under partial throttle. That's why a lot of guys won't even mess with it. So upshift, typically they'll only do the high load areas. Downshift, they'll give you a little bit of playroom there, but for the most part, most guys don't like messing with transmission tuning at all. Let's see. Christian saying, been looking at both Hellcats and Grand Sports lately. I know apples and oranges. Love the attitude of the Dodge, but man, those C7s look stunning and perform great. Any thoughts about either? I like them both. I really do. I mean, in this situation, they are bookended about as far away from each other as you can get. You can make them both go fast in a straight line. The thing is that you'll never be able to mess with the Vet, though. If you're into roll racing, if you like doing half mile and mile events, the Vet is the only way to go. I mean, for the money that you spend, you're going to get a hell of a strong performing car in that respect. But in just ride quality and just beefiness, you can't beat the Mopar there either. So, I mean, man, and I've owned Corvettes, and I can tell you that I really liked my Vet. That was my slowest Vet, was my favorite, my 96. So I don't know, it really depends on what you're into and what your goals are for the car. If you made a choice either way, you're making the right choice as far as I'm concerned. CJ saying, good evening, B. What's up, brother? How's it going? It's going well, man. Thank you very much for asking. Jay is saying, I wonder if you remember me. I was Joe T a couple of months ago until I got my truck. Now I'm just Jay. Would you happen to know about the Pulsar tuning for the Rams? Hold on, making another comment. Hang on. Oh, something happened here. Pulsar is just it's a signal intercept, and I'm not a big fan of those for these vehicles. You can do that with diesels, but I'm not a huge fan of doing that with the gas stuff, especially not with a Hemi. You don't want to try to get greedy with a Hemi, and you definitely don't want a signal intercept, in my opinion, with a Hemi. Smoking 05 asks, can we make an HP 70 or HP 90 shift as hard as an old school trans? Yeah, you can. Harder, actually. Been in old muscle cars that shift hard and lurch forward on each upshift. Yeah, you can, but that's not necessarily always a good thing. A little bit of slip is going to help that transmission keep the car moving forward, especially considering the weight. The really hard shifts, although they're kind of cool and they're easier on the transmission, but they're hell on U-joints, it gives a perception that something is performance related going on there, but it's not necessarily the best idea. And really that line pressure, that harder shift, is there so that if you're making a ton of power, you have a controlled amount of slip under that much higher load. When you take that same mentality and have less power, what you end up having is you have a transmission that does not give any slip, and you can actually upset the chassis. That's exactly what it feels like with with transmission tuning, when the trans is still trying to adapt, you get a real hard bam shift, but it's not a good hit. It's kind of it's almost like it's a stutter almost. So anyway, kind of hard to explain, something you have to experience to really get the feel of, but it feels like a manual transmission that just wasn't quite shifted properly. But no, to answer your question, yeah, no, you can make these things shift obnoxiously hard. Southern Hot Rod, when they put their transmission upgrades together, yeah, those things are insanely hard shifting transmissions. James Hutch saying sticky Mickeys for the win. Absolutely. Tim Fastcar said, I just entered the house. You man B. What up, Tim? Toby Rano saying Revlon is looking beautiful on this fine evening. Thank you very much. Let's see. CJ Colton saying Stacy David from Gears did a build on a 67 C10 called Copperhead with a GM 572 big block, making 620 horse and 650 foot-pounds of torque, and it's a beast. Stacy David built that truck on a TV show Trucks. Yeah, he did. I remember that truck, or something similar to it anyway that he did. Jay saying, from what I understand, Pulsar is a piggyback, and the company says no red flags on ECU for warranty. Thoughts? Yeah, again, man, I mean, it's a piggyback, so it's a signal intercept, and what it's basically doing is it's taking the signal that the computer would normally get, and it's messing with it to jack with load settings. That's okay if you're just messing with driver demand torque, which is your throttle pedal. I mean, that's just basically it's an algorithm that ramps up voltage based on throttle position. Basically just tells the computer you're giving it more throttle than you really are. But messing with tuning with these cars in that respect, at least with these computers, I just wouldn't really recommend it. You're just not, I don't think you're going to get the results that you're looking for. And I would rather have total control over my computer than just a very partial control over things that, like timing, for example. I want to be able to tell the thing exactly what's going on. Let's see. Jay saying, damn, character capacity. Also watched my guy, Ram Beast Projects. He ran it on a dyno and gained horsepower and lost torque. Do you think that's just the tune? Yes, it is. Again, James, thank you very much for the contribution. Just getting back to that. Toby Ramos saying the funny thing is that the 2020 Corvette interior looks more super than the new Supra. Now I get that. Pretty interesting interior, by the way. I like the futuristic layout. It's cool to see something different, something new, and just kind of a blank sheet of paper in terms of thought process. I think that's pretty neat. Yeah, Symphonic saying the Supra is rated at 335. Car and driver dynoed it at 339. So to that point, there's been a Supra running at Houston Raceway Park. I almost call it Royal Purple. Anyway, he is running 1240s at, I think, 113 miles an hour. Bone stock Supra running 1240. So, I mean, they're good running cars. For that power, I figure mine being a little bit faster. But again, it's only 335 horsepower to the rear wheel. It's not like it's making a ton of power, but it's enough to run mid-12s, which is a very fast car by any stretch. I mean, it's running the same times as what you'd get out of a very bone stock Scat Pack. Onyx saying, my night at work just got better with this live chat. I work for ZF. Awesome, man. What ZF is in the Supra? I'm like, man, if that's an HP 70, I'll tell you what, if the Supra got an HP 70, that would mean it would handle a significant bump in power before it started running up against any limitations. So that would be pretty sweet. But glad we're making your day fun, man. Richard saying, thinking about lowering my Scat Pack. Should I go with lowering springs or coilovers? If coilovers are in the budget, always go coilovers. Lowering springs are good. Just make sure you get it four-wheel aligned when you get done with that thing. Trust me, budget that from the jump. You're going to want to have that thing realigned all the way around, because if you don't, it's going to ride like crap. James Powers saying, hey, B-May saying, what's up? We just got a 2013 Kia Optima Hybrid and we love it. Well, awesome, man. Hopefully it gets good fuel economy for you. It'll probably last forever too. Those cars are, most of the Kias and Hyundais last forever. Tim Ron saying, I can't wait to see what the Ram 1500 TRX is going to be like. That's me and you both. James Hutch saying, Mason, what's a good combination to possibly get my future 6.1 build in the 500 NA? Thanks for all you do. Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. So to get yours into that range, let's hold off on 500 horsepower. Let's just go with what we know works. So I would say extrude on your intake manifold. Go with a Hellcat throttle body. Obviously, you're going to be tuning it, so you'll be able to tune around all of this. Cam-wise, I would go with something around 220, because you're going to want to spin this engine. So I'd say 226 on the intake, probably 230, 232 on the exhaust. You're going to want to be around 600 lift on the intake, around 580 on the exhaust. Intake center line of about 108, depending on what you're going with. Is it automatic or is it? Nah, it doesn't really matter. Say 109 if you want to try to cheat the power a little bit on the intake center line. And about 115 degree, 114 degree lobe separation angle. That'll be the cam for you, so get that set up. Run Hellcat lifters, 080 push rods, throw a set of stand key tie bars and collars on it, and 1 7/8 inch long tube headers, no cats, going into a straight through exhaust with either an H or an X pipe. I kind of like the H pipe myself because I think it sounds better, but 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. I've done so much testing with H and X pipes that I got sick of it after a while. But that'll be your basic garden variety hot rod combination. Probably will put down somewhere in the range of 480-ish, maybe 470. No, I'll take it back. Probably more like 440, 450 on a Mustang dyno. Probably get you close to 500 on a dyno jet, but it would freaking rock. So if you want to cheat the power down low a little bit, I'd say go with a cam. Same specs, but about 108 degree LSA as opposed to a 109. 109 might feel a little bit sluggish by comparison. And you can always tighten up the lobe separation angle a little bit and get a little bit more mid-range out of it. Let's see. Christian's asking, do you think the GT350 will be a collector car in the future? To somebody it will be, I'm sure. I find it interesting that the flat plane crank is unique to that car only. Well, it's really not unique to that car only. A lot of cars have a flat plane crank. It's just not many V8s are flat plane. There's secondary harmonics in a V8 that just don't sit well with flat plane architecture. But it's one of the reasons why V6s will typically have a counter shaft or some sort of counterbalancing. They fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Basically the same way that the Voodoo engine goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Same type of an idea. Yeah, somebody's going to think that it's great, but it will always roll up with an asterisk. And that asterisk is, it ain't a GT500. So is it special? I don't know. It's certainly not as durable as what most folks would have liked for that car to be. James Hutch saying, most welcome, brother. We're talking about his contribution to the cause, man. Truly appreciate it. Shawnee is asking, can I ice down the top of that intercooler between passes? Looks like it's separated from the supercharger. Actually, that is the lid. It won't do you a whole lot of good to ice it unless you're just trying to rapidly cool it down. And in that case, don't do that very often. You've got thermal expansion and contraction issues that you can possibly run into with that. I don't like doing that, but no, that's just the lid. That's a discharge area for the supercharger. It wraps around the lid and goes back down around the supercharger side into the bricks, which are your actual intercooler. So the short answer is no, you can't really ice down the intercooler unless you're icing down your fuel injectors, which means getting them really wet, and I don't suggest doing that. Just keep the hood open, let her cool off, and she'll be in good shape. Keep the fans on her as best you can. Let's see, how deep are we into this? Hang on just a second. CJ saying Horsepower Monster did a Ford V12 build using two 302 Windsor blocks with 4 Cleveland cylinder. I've seen something like that. There's been guys that have done that with LS engines too. Craft their own V10, V12. That's happened quite a bit. Tugger Rom is asking, what do you think about the 1,000 horsepower all-wheel drive Charger? I think it'll be it's a cool thing to consider, but I would never really want to own one just based on the complexity and again, questions about durability. But as a I don't know, as an engineering exercise, I think it's pretty neat. Oh, Dr. Div's telling Hayden to give him a shout on that cam. Give Dr. Div a shout, man. He can definitely get you taken care of. Chris Duvall saying, hey, I say that right? Yeah, Chris Duvall saying, hey, man, how's it going? Would you recommend 6.4 exhaust manifolds or long tube headers on a 70 Challenger 5.7, both without cats? If you're going to be going in there, if it's in the budget for long tubes, get the long tubes. Depending on how aggressive you're going to get, 1 5/8 will do just fine. If you have partial throttle drivability is a thing for you. If not, go with 1 7/8 and it'll sing and it'll sound great. And they'll weigh probably less than the 6.4 manifolds or the Hellcat manifolds, the same thing. Or the 6.1 manifold, same thing. Shawnee's saying, oh, why does nobody talk about the cubic inches of the 6.2? It's like 380 or something. I think it's 375. I don't know. It doesn't really roll off the tongue, and it doesn't have a direct line of sight correlation to anything in terms of historical significance. The 345 5.7 Hemi is another weird one that is 5.7. Strange though, back in the day, the Gen 1 345 Hemi was one of the first to be adopted into racing. And some will argue that it was better than the 392, which is another Gen 1 cubic inch displacement that was big in drag racing. But the 345 had a record of being a bit more durable and can possibly handle a little bit more power. There was always a 345 versus 392, a little bit of a sibling rivalry going on back in the day with the DeSoto and Mopar engine. So, good question. I don't know. And like I say, the other question is I don't know why they didn't tout the 345 Hemi when that itself was actually an original Gen 1 Hemi cubic inch displacement. Indeed, money. I need money every day. Love that screen name. Have you seen any 6.1s with turbos? I've only seen a few, and they weren't full out kill type recipes, so I can't really speak to them in terms of how they would compare to other cars. To me, the turbo kits on a 6.1 always seemed clumsy, mainly because there's not any real room in that engine compartment. The layout on the LX platform, there's just not a lot of room to put that stuff in there. I've seen them kind of get away with it a little bit, but it just, again, not really my cup of tea. I prefer to see something that looks a little bit better, well defined in terms of the engineering behind it. But they work, and they work to the tune of, on a 6.1, I think one of them was making about 630 to the wheels. Again, not a ton. I think that was the most I've ever seen one make was 630, but we just didn't see that many, or I didn't see that many when I was at the shop full time. James Hutch is asking, in your opinion, what flows better, 6.1 heads or 5.7 Eagle? 6.1s do. I've been hearing conflicting information regarding this. Appreciate your input. They're actually very similar in terms of how they flow. I know on the flow bench, the 6.1 is actually not, it won't show as good, but I think the mid-lift numbers are better on the 6.1, if memory serves me correctly. And neither one of them do near as well as the Apache heads. But either way you go, without splitting hairs, I want to say that you're still around the 270-ish flow range for the non-VVT engines. And the reason why that's important is you can get away with more cam with the early Gen 3 Hemis than you can with the with the Apache engines. mainly because the heads just flow a ton of air. There's not that much velocity. The 6.1 has really good velocity for the lift, I can tell you that. So there's that to consider. So cams, yeah, you can get away with a little bit more. It's a little bit more old school in its approach, whereas the newer engines are throwing compression and a ton of flow at them to make that power. It works great, but you can almost consider it to be a bit of a mismatch. I don't know. I love the combination of the 6.4 intake on the 6.1. I've heard of guys doing that. 6.4 intake on 5.7s works really well too. But again, it can be a bit of a pain in the ass. You have to set up a window switch for the variable runner on the intake. But again, those heads for a street car are amazing, and don't worry about either one. Again, my understanding was that mid-lift numbers were better on the 6.1. I know they've got good velocity for whatever the lift flow rate is, or the flow rate is per lift. So there's that. Let's see. 10 Fast Cars. B. Mason, is there an advantage to running no air cleaner on a Demon at the track? Not really, because the Demon is going to not be able to flow as much as the race filter can flow. So I run the air filter and protect your investment. There's a lot of guys that run no filter at the track, and these are typically guys that are only running their car in that configuration at the drag strip. In that case, not that big of a deal. I don't see that being a big problem. I always run a filter in my cars because I'm far too lazy to take the 30 seconds to swap them out. But on the dyno, I have never seen one pick up some amount of power that would be worth my time to swap them out. Now you go to higher horsepower levels, and there might be something to that, but the most I've seen on an 800 horsepower to the rear wheels car was about, I want to say it was like 15 horsepower. And I mean, that's on a stock Hellcat filter when we're talking about engines that are making 800 to the wheels as opposed to a good one making 600. So 30% more power, very minor loss in total horsepower output. Keep it clean and let it rip. Donald Trump official, could you make America great again? I make America great every day, my friend, but thank you very much for checking in, Mr. Trump. President Trump, I should say. James Powers, what are your thoughts on cars that drive themselves? They scare the hell out of me. The only car that drives itself needs to be like on tracks. They're called trains, and you got a conductor that's there. So yeah, no, I'm not cool with that. Don't like the idea, and I think it's weird, and I will never be on board with that. I don't care if an airplane has autopilot. I don't trust a car to do that. Opens up a lot of weird caveats, and there's some legal loopholes that are too easy to exploit there too. Shawnee's saying Brian's going to make America fast again. Hell yeah. He's already made Texas faster. You better believe it, baby. Lone Star State. CJ Colton saying, I imagine someone taking a 6.8 single overhead 2-valve Triton V10 and using 3, 4, 6, 32 valve heads, ported, polished, result 6.8. I don't know, man. Hard to keep up with that one, but it'd be pretty cool. Jay, who thinks B. Mason should be on the engine design team for the next big Dodge? The Devil, the Angel, the Archangel, the Saint, the Bishop, whatever we want to call it, man. I'm cool with it. I would love to be on that design team. I've actually got some ideas, but they're just ideas. Let's see. I mean, not that my ideas are any good or anything. James Powers, man, I wish I knew as much about cars as you do. It only serves to prove that I needed to find myself a girlfriend when I was younger. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. Jeffrey Bender, the Enforcer. I saw a couple of videos of GT 350 hand grenades. Plastic wall pen? Yeah, plastic wall pen. Among other issues. I have heard of the issues with the GT 350, and they have been letting go. And I'm not saying that that's all of them are just going to pop, but man, I got to tell you, you know, with all the development time and hours upon hours upon hours, and you would have thought they'd beat the living crap out of their test mules enough to where they would have found some weak points. But mass production being what it is, I mean, you're gonna run into these types of problems. So what I would say is this: I don't want to give the GT350 a kitchen pass just because a few of the cars have let go in catastrophic form. I don't like to talk about stuff like that because it gives me the creeps. But what I will say is this: if there is any justice to be had with all of this, it is, for years, the Mustang was the epitome of durability and performance. Taking Mopar completely out of this thing, going all the way back to the Fox bodies with the 5.0 HOs, those things were bomb-proof, although they didn't make any power, so you'd figure they would be. But, you know, the 3-valve, okay, maybe, but there were still great engines, at least in terms of, you know, being a placeholder, and they made decent enough power. But the original Coyote, right up through 18, was just an awesome engine. And it's just now that they're running into these problems. I think what they should have done is just left well enough alone. I think that the cross-plane crank thing is a gimmick more than anything else. And especially when you consider the fact there's plenty of people turning regular Coyotes to 8,000 RPM. Yeah, there might be something to the Voodoo platform, but if you lean on that thing the way guys have been wanting to lean on them, something's going to let go. This is Richard Dad. What coilovers do you suggest? Do I need an alignment going this route? Oh yeah, you're going to need an alignment. I cannot, because I'm being put on the spot. My brain is failing me. I can't tell you the name. There's a few manufacturers out there that were making them. I don't really pay too much attention to the coilover setups, but yes, you will absolutely need to get it realigned after that. Always. Anytime you lower one of these cars, first place you need to go is to the alignment shop. You will tear your tires apart. But check out MMX. I know they've got the kit. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. Pretty all-inclusive kit, though. James Hodge saying, thanks, brother. How can I get that awesome advice in an email file for close reference? Sounds like I'll be visiting Southern Hot Rod after a beastly build as you described. You rock. Thank you very much. Actually, man, all you got to do is hit up Southern Hot Rod. Talk to Jimmy. Tell him B. Mason sent you from Pike's Performance. He'll know what you're talking about. And go from there. Be the best advice I can give you. Let's see. Jay saying, I think FCA is doing great on the cars currently being built and sold. Yeah, as long as we're not talking about fuel pressure sensors. Now, the service department, yeah, my family has two cars with the Tiger Shark motor and both burning oil. Techs don't know why. Valve seals. Shawnee, is there anything special you do for the supercharger maintenance on your Hellcat? I pet it. No, there's nothing you got to do. It's a sealed enclosure. You are good to go, man. Toby Rama, would the Ford 460 be a good platform for a high-performance build, or would the 390 FE big block be better at taking power? Well, it's the same family, so I built 460s. In fact, my Mark III Superformance had a 10-over 460, making about 625 horsepower, and was the scariest car I've ever driven in my life. Dr. Diff saying, what intercooler would you suggest for your new setup? We need to talk about that because I would say air to water, no doubt about that. I would run a secondary tank in the bed of that truck for what you're looking to do with a petcock so you can quick drain. Run water and ice back there with a Bosch pump and you will be in good shape. In fact, I might even run two Bosch pumps if you want to be real cheeky about it. But I would say in series twin air to water small intercoolers with auxiliary fans on both, one feeding into the next and then running back to the tank. Ray Perez saying 460. Oh yeah, I've built a couple of them. Just don't forget your thrust plate. Hey Nell saying, do you think there will ever be a single turbo kit offered for Hemi's Challenger Charger 300? Actually, yeah. I mean, talk to Dr. Diff. He's got a single turbo on his truck. As far as the cars go, man, I'm not 100% sure. You know, most of the guys are staying kind of clear of turbos again because of packaging. It just doesn't fit that well. You've got to do a lot of relocating to really make things work properly, and a lot of guys just really aren't open to that kind of work on these cars. Not when you can get great results with a supercharger. But I'm pretty sure that there are some guys, some speed shops that are going to be coming out with turbo kits that are commercially viable. I just don't know of any off the top of my head. And which is a shame. Again, it's packaging. These cars are tough to package. Let's see. Unique Grooming. What do you say? Asking, what do you think about the MMX HC1 camshaft? Modern Muscle claims 862 rural horsepower, lower pulley, throttle body, long tubes. What's your take on it? Well, here's the thing. I don't like talking horsepower numbers per se because they're too easy to fudge. 862 rear wheel horsepower with just a lower pulley, a throttle body, and long tubes is a lot to ask, and you're not going to get that out of that cam. You're just not. I've put together cams for Hellcats, and the only time you get a significant power increase is if you throw a lot more pulley ratio at it than just a lower pulley. You need a 10% ATI lower, which is slightly larger than a Innovators West lower pulley. You need a full 10% ATI lower with a 265 upper before you're really going to see any real gains with a camshaft. And a lot of that is going to be to basically bleed off some of the heat in that camshaft to make the setup a bit more efficient, but you're going to be bleeding off boost in the process. So take your pick on that. The other thing is on what fuel are we talking, because you know, if we're talking something that's already on E85, you can probably tune something like that into it on a dyno jet, but I can do that with a stock cam. Besides, stock cam's really good in the Hellcat. Let's see. James Powers, what was the first car you've owned? 1984 Dodge 600 Turbo. Check it out. That's a car that I would love to have back because I would build a front wheel drive drag race monster out of that little thing. Also, when did you own it and when did you get your license? I got my license on my birthday, I think, at the age of 16, and that was my very first car. And it would do ridiculous burnouts, by the way. Let's see. Brian's asking, why do people respect the Ford 302 and Mopar 318, but the Chevy 305 and Olds 307 are respected by none? Well, I don't know, man. The 302, I mean, it's a 302. I mean, it was the corporate V8 for Ford, and they had HO versions and HO varieties of it. Mopar 318, you know, there never really was a major hot rod version of that engine, but guys had started hot rodding those, and they had a very long life. So I think that's really more nostalgia than anything else. Although I've seen 318s actually run really well. They don't really run as good as a 360, but they always did fairly well. But the 305 was never really a performance engine until later on in its life. And even then, it was kind of it was almost like a placeholder, and you almost got the impression that it was kind of a waste, really. When you had the 350 that was the exact same engine, you could just use that. You got to remember, back in the day, 302 was a fantastic engine because of its size. It's physically small. It's a very short deck engine. Can't have a whole lot of cubic inches out of it, but they were light. 318 had been around forever and was the workhorse V8, and so again, it had been around in that respect. But 305 never really was. It was, you always knew that you went cheap when you got a 305, unless you got like a Firebird or something like that. They just didn't offer a 350 for what you were going for. The Olds 307, I don't know, man. Again, it's an entry level. You got to remember the 305 and the 307 were just this side of a 6-cylinder, so it never really represented a solid upgrade, I guess you could call it. And because of that, nobody wanted to hot rod them, because if you're going to hot rod that, you can just hot rod a 350, make a lot more power, and you're good to go. Whereas the 302 actually had a purpose, and so did the 318. Sean, he's saying that the Chevy 350 is so popular it overshadows a lot of other small blocks. Well, I mean, look, it is the quintessential small block, so it's tough to beat the King, I guess. Let's see. M. Valdez, is it possible to put a line lock roll control kit on a 2015 and up Challenger? Yes, it is. All you need to do is buy a taser and you are done. It's got a line lock in it. And Shawnee just checked in with that. Very good. Symphonics, predictions on C8 quarter mile times. I'm thinking 11.3 at 118. I'm thinking 11. I'm going to say an 11.15 at 122, 123. Jay, opinion on Scotty Kilmer calling Rams garbage. He only likes Toyotas. Yeah, well, you know, what can I say? Scotty Kilmer's got his own opinions. We'll just let him ride with those. Dr. Div saying, what's a good air to water for them? You'd have to, it'd be a custom fab kit. There's guys that have made all kinds of different setups for those. Who was it that made, I think, God, man, it's been 100 years ago. We'd have to actually take a look at what would work with your application, if you can make something work. It's going to be custom fabricated for sure, no doubt about that. That would fit. Yeah, it takes some looking, because I don't know anything about making, you know, aftermarket stuff work with other aftermarket stuff, and some research would have to go into that one for sure. Let's see. Or just go air to air and call it good, because that'd be a whole lot easier. Whole lot easier. And they work fine. Al's Dream saying, what can a stock Hellcat get in the quarter mile with 275 40 20 NT Tri-5R tires? 1080s. All day, every day. That's what that car was rated 1080s for by Mopar. It was on 275 40 20s on stock wheels. Shawnee asking, why haven't you removed your hood liner? I hear it muffles the supercharger whine, may even hold in heat. I'm considering ditching mine. Any thoughts? I just don't have anywhere to store it. Nah, it's not going to hold in any real heat, considering you have a big old vent right in the middle and two other vents on either side of it. It's really not going to hold in any real amount of heat. That stuff's going to go away pretty quickly once the car gets rolling. So, not to mention that supercharger gets real hot, and I don't want to have that supercharger sitting right underneath my paint job without some kind of a protection. Jay asking, do you think we'll ever see a Dodge going for a high top speed like 220, 250? Not really. I mean, the Viper is pretty close at like 210 or whatever it is. So it gets you fairly close to the number that you're looking for, but I don't know that that will be something that you'll see, not for a little bit. Dodge has made some very fast mid-engine cars, or at least one very fast mid-engine car was the something 410. Anyway, I can't remember off the top of my head, but anyway, getting back to the point, maybe, you know, Dodge's claim to fame really is that old school muscle car mentality and muscle car feel, but we'll see. There is some stuff coming down the pipe. Stay tuned, but it's going to be a ways out, but there will be something coming that will get close to that. Al's Dream, would you ever put a leg maker intake? Yeah, I actually had one on my SRT. I really liked it. Leg maker on the Hellcat. Again, it looks great, sounds great. You're not going to get any power out of it, but if that's the vibe that you're going for, man, I say go for it. The theater of those types of intakes is possibly worth the cost. So in that respect, sure. I mean, is there a performance penalty? Yeah, if there is, it's slight. And again, if you're not chasing numbers and you're just going for the experience, I say buy one, throw it on there, let it rip, and just listen to that supercharger wail. You'll love it. Let's see. Chris is asking, what car did you have before the white SRT 392? I had two actually in my garage. I had an 04 Z06 heads cam intake car. And I had a 96 Corvette, which was the Barbie Vet, bone stock, black with gray interior. Should not have gotten rid of that car. I loved driving my Guido Vet so much. Shawnee, Al's Dream, asked me in 2 days. Actually, I'm going to run 305 Nittos, so never mind. But otherwise, stock on my 16 Hellcat. I will report back next live stream. We are looking forward to that, my friend. I think you're going to love it. Trim Kim saying your opinion on best hooking tires for the wide body. Well, it'd be the Mickey Thompson 305 45 17s. Now, if you're talking about the stock tires, go with a set of NT05s in the 315 30 20s, I think is the size that fits those. But I do know that those work really well, and I believe that's the size Mopar had on the back of his car when we were running, and when he ran the 1030 with that car bone stock at Legion of Demons last year, or technically this year, and that's what he had on the back of the car. Again, if memory serves me correctly, when we were running each other up in Dallas. Let's see. Al Stream's hanging out with Jay. CJ, Scotty Kilmer is garbage himself. I love it. I'm going to use it, man. That guy is garbage. Stop garbaging yourself. I love it. That's so awesome. Rama, how much lift duration do you recommend for a slight lope? It's still not annoying, but still sounds meaty at idle. It depends on the engine, depends on what your definition of slight is. But lift and duration, I tell you what, it has more to do with the load profile, really, than anything else. But yeah, something in the 220, 218 range is going to be good at about 540, 550 lift. With 230-ish on exhaust, probably would be a nice sounding cam with about 115 degree lobe separation. If it's for like a 5.7, that would be a fun little cam for that car. Throw a set of long tubes on it and call it good. Chris is asking, is it necessary to get a ceramic coated header if going with long tubes? I always recommend it. If for no other reason than for to keep it from rusting. It's a good finish. Holds in some heat. There's only so much I can give that, but yeah, it is a good idea to have them ceramic coated. Let's see. Beamer fans asking thoughts on the C6 Z06 now with them being a decent bargain on the used market. They're fantastic cars. If you ever get a chance to drive one, take it, because you will not leave that experience disappointed. They're great cars. If I have any criticism to them, though, the supercharger is a little bit small. They can kind of get a little bit on the hot side, but aside from that, if you're just out playing around with the car, you're going to love it. Trust me. It's one of my favorite cars to drive. Stream's hanging out with Jay. Let's see some phonics. Did you ever get a chance to see that Power Auto? Man, I went and looked for it. I couldn't find it, so I did go looking for that. He's asking about the Power Auto Media Mopar. Man, maybe I just looked it up wrong. I'll have to go back and take a look. K Jonesy, what's up? Hoods up show in progress, man. You better believe it. I love it. James Hutch, do you have an Instagram page? Yes, I do, and I don't give that out anymore. Had way too many people sending me way too many messages at way too many hours of the night that was waking me up. And actually, I'm in the process of going through and wiping out some folks on there, because I will get hit up with stuff at all hours of the night and wearing me out on some things. I just don't have time to battle that demon anymore. Let's see, Jay and Al's are hanging out. Let's see, Smoking at 5. Any thoughts about that demon that caught fire in the burnout box? I don't, although I heard about it. I didn't see it. I did hear about it, and secondhand info is that the track guy got flustered or frustrated, as opposed to ripping the guy out of the car, popping the hood, and putting out the fire. To me, he just didn't do his job. That brings us to the end of the comments. So let's talk about the plans for the car. So if you've stuck around for an hour and 20 minutes, here's the thing. So Revlon's getting a gear. My good buddy Ray is hooking me up with an obnoxiously good deal on a 309 gear that he'd originally bought for a Hellcat that he owned, that he ended up not needing, and it's been sitting in his office now for a couple of years. So yeah, I have got a smoking deal on a 309 gear, so Revlon will be getting the final piece of the puzzle, 309 gear. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that once the gear goes in the car, I'm going to be doing a lot of smoke and mirrors type of tuning on that transmission to get that gear to work properly. I want that thing to act just like a stock gear, and I think that I'm going to be in a good position with it because I'm not throwing a ton of power at the car. I think we'll be in pretty good shape. I think that once the gear goes in, we are going to be shooting for in the heat 1050s would be the goal for the car. We're hoping to get the thing installed fairly quickly, but again, the goal is to get the car into the 50s in the heat, and to see just how deep into the 10s we can put this thing once the temperature starts to drop. So some breaking news for you guys. Your contribution dollars at work helping me buy a new sensor. Kind of wasn't expecting that at all, but the gear is a done deal, and I'm looking forward to getting that in the car here fairly soon. But getting back to it, James Hutch saying, yeah, totally understand about the Instagram thing. Yeah, I used to have it up on my bio page, and yeah, it was yeah. Evil B 392. Any thoughts on the Holley intake for the 392 cars? I love it. I think now is the time where you can put a cam together that sufficiently kills torque down low, but will actually help these things make plenty of power up top. I think it'll work great for stroker applications, and it's very similar to the stuff the LS guys have. So I think it'll do just as well for these cars. Christopher asking, do you recommend JBA long tubes? JBAs are okay. I prefer Cooks for value and for performance and for build quality. Johnny Peters asking, hey B, quick question. My 2017 Scat Pack rear end makes a noise when making sharp turns, like turning into parking lots. Is this normal? Yeah, a lot of them do that. Some guys have criticized me about saying, yeah, don't worry about it or anything like that. If it's bugging you, take it in. Dealerships know about it. May need to check fluid level if that's the case, but a lot of them do. I've checked mine. Mine's always made noise, and it's actually, fluid levels are fine. So if it's bugging you, go in, check it out. But yes, I have that same thing with my car, and it's doing great. Christian McVeigh, what gearing would you suggest for a manual Hellcat? I've heard they're sluggish from the factory. They are. I suggest the 392 gears out of a manual Scat Pack. That will help a little bit. Now, you got to remember they come with 370s from the factory, so it's not going to be a huge departure, but believe me, with a 228 or a 226, whatever that first gear ratio is, anything will help that car get moving and not feel sluggish, especially when you're taking off from a light. Again, it's not going to make a huge difference, but it will help, and that's really the best advice I can give you on that one. SRT Crazy's in saying, hey, it's been a while. I was missing your live chat sessions on here. Do you think, I've been missing doing them actually. Do you think that the bean counters will allow the SRT crew to drop the Elephant in a production car? If so, which one? Man, there's been some talk about that. So there's been some talk about a detuned version of that going into what will be called the CUDA, which I've heard rumors of that being the next Halo car. I've heard rumors of that possibly being an optional engine for a V8 powered Viper soon to come. So there's that to look forward to or not look forward to, depending on what they do with it. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility to see something like that. What I would rather see is just an aluminum block version of the 6.2 with a supercharger going to something with the same, maybe really with the 6.2 it'd actually be stronger than the 426 in terms of just rod to stroke ratio being better, and have something that'll be warrantable that you can make the same type of power, like a sleeved aluminum block, something you can make the same kind of power and just be slightly lighter. I think the big issue here though is that it's 100 pounds difference, and 100 pounds is a lot, don't get me wrong, but when the car's already as heavy as these are, that 100 pounds is kind of hard to justify, and I think that's really the point with that. So will the Elephant engine be out there? Hard to say. I would rather see some of the technology behind that Elephant, or at least some of the hardware behind the Elephant, come into a production vehicle in one way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be 426 cubic inches, but it would be really nice to get that lightweight block, or at least that Elephant supercharger. Dr. Div saying, hell yeah, Gears. When you do that, let me know. I'll either do it for you at a discount rate or help you do it at the shop if you want to make the drive. I appreciate that, and I will be letting you know for sure once that time comes. Because yeah, it's coming quick. In fact, I'm probably going to be picking them up tomorrow. Shawnee's saying some people will put an additive in the rear ends. Oh, I never heard anything on my 18 Scat Pack, but I have heard of that. Some kind of slip oil. B should know. Yep, it is friction modifier. Well, Dr. Diff will tell you even better than me, saying that is a traction additive. Trust me on that. Just change the fluid and add your 2 Mopar traction additives. They're $12 at the dealer. Okay, and your diff problem is done. I like it. Boost Motorsport saying, what up, B Mason? What up, man? Dr. Diff, additive breaks down before the fluid. Change it every 15,000. Absolutely. Ruben's asking, worth modding a 5.7 Hemi? Absolutely it is. Modded 5.7s are a lot of fun, by the way. People discount it, but man, I like the 5.7 a lot. Symphonic saying, I want a little upgrade on the sound of my LS3 Vet. Don't want to go full on headers. Might be too loud. Would off-road X-Pipe make any difference? I still have the cats on the headers. Man, dude, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, you can go with an off-road X-Pipe. You're just not going to pick up a ton of power. You really need to go long tubes with those LS engines. They actually respond well to long tubes. Catless, not so much. I mean, modern catalytic converters flow a ton. To give you an idea, Revlon's still got her stock catalytic converters, so go figure. But that's the route I would go. Toby Rama is asking, have you ever watched Pastime? Yeah, back in the day. It was a drag racing game show on Speed Channel back before the suits at Fox destroyed it. Yeah, actually I did. That was a fun game show. Made for a great drinking game, too, by the way. Let's see. Oh, Symphonic saying, but would remove the resonators in the mid-pipe. Man, I wouldn't know. I don't know if I would go that route, because those things get obnoxiously loud. And the thing is, they're not loud. They're obnoxiously loud in that they've got a shrill sound to them. It's from an auditory point of view, it's akin to being yelled at by your girlfriend. It's just got that sound to it. It's not a very palatable sound. Christian McVeigh is asking, does Pice Performance offer a package for 6-speed Hellcats? Yes, Pipes Performance offers several packages. One is the Charlie package, second is the Bravo package, and third is the Alpha package. And then you get into Alpha Plus, which is a stroker combination with a Whipple. Best package, in my opinion, is a Bravo package. That's basically lower pulley, upper pulley, spark plugs, exhaust, fuel pumps, basically an E85 conversion. You can do a Charlie package with a single pulley, upper pulley swap, but it just depends on what you're looking for. For the manual Hellcat, I like a 392 gear with a 295 or a 285 upper pulley. Injectors and a tune, and that will put you right where you need to be. Let's see. Dr. Div saying Hemi responds good with long tubes and a cam. Yes, they do very well indeed. Johnny Peter says, thanks guys, car only has 3,000 miles on it. Oh, it's a baby. It's not even broken in yet. Nothing to something saying, I have a stock 16 Hellcat Challenger. I want to be around 900 horsepower to the wheel. Any suggestions? I got a lot of suggestions for that. Bravo package from Pipes Performance on a dyno jet will put you right at 880, and it is a proven durable package. Don't get suckered in by horsepower numbers, by the way. They're irrelevant once you start talking about these types of power numbers. A swing of 50 horsepower one way or another can mean the difference of your car lasting indefinitely and you having a lot of fun with it and you blowing your car up. So I always say err on the side of caution. The difference in ET will be negligible between the two power numbers. I can tell you that from experience. Even at the lower power numbers that I'm at compared to that, a swing of 60 horsepower, 50 horsepower is only 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles an hour at the most at the top end of the track, and it does not guarantee a win. So there's that. Again, don't get caught up in the power numbers, but realistically speaking, switch to E85, injected engineering pumps with fuel injector connection, 127 pound injectors, 275 upper and a pinned lower with either an Innovators West or an ATI lower will get you very close to that number with a cat delete. And the cat delete's really only there because you'll cook the cat straight out of that thing if you don't. So with the right tune, you'll be in good shape. Give Alex a shout over at Pipes Performance. It's P-E-I-T-Z if you're in the Houston area for that full-on service. If you're asking specifically about pipes, yes, and that's the way to get it over there. Or get that information. James Hedge saying, yeah, Pastime was an awesome show. The episode that featured the SRT8 Magnum was the one that really got me into the Magnum. I love Magnums. It's a shame they don't make them anymore. James saying, I like horsepower numbers, but really want torque monster out of my future 6.1 build. If you're looking for a torque monster out of the 6.1, I'd say go with something like an E4 supercharger. Install that thing, run a different tune though. The E-Force tunes are always a little bit on the shy side, if I'm being honest. So there's that to consider. But if that's what you're looking for, go that route. It'll be plenty durable and you'll have a lot of fun with it. So let's see. Sean E. Okay, so let's talk about my stuff for a minute. No, just kidding. Shawnee's asking, what are your expectations for 309 gear and 60 foot times? I would like to see somewhere consistently in 153 to 157 range in the heat, and hopefully a 147 to 150 in good weather. That's kind of the goal for the car. Again, put the car solidly into the 1050 range in the heat, and in 1020s in good weather. The goal is to try to get a teen out of it, basically running it on stock power and pump gas with maybe a little bit of 100 thrown at it just for good measure. Although in all my data logs, 93 octane seems to do just fine with it. And what's funny about these cars, by the way, just so you know, guys with Hellcats, stock tune or stock-ish tune, stock-ish in this case is just my transmission tune. The parameters, in other words, no extra timing. I'm actually throwing just a scotch of fuel at my car in the upper RPM ranges over stock. It's just a little bit, but so by conventional wisdom, you'd say, oh, you're slowing your car down by throwing more fuel. Leaner is meaner. And my thing is, look, I live in Houston, Texas, where when the DA gets low, it gets real low, and I want a little bit of added protection. Again, it's not much, but just a little bit more fuel is what I'm throwing at it. And even without throwing the extra fuel at it, a little bit of race gas can kind of help these cars. So the tune in these cars is basically riding the it's riding the knock sensors, and that's why typically you're going to remove, say, a large percentage of sensitivity out of the knock sensors. I don't remove very much at all. In fact, I think I'm removing 15%, which is not much considering that when you really start throwing fuel at them, you knock them down even more than that. I'm actually going to kick that number back to about 10%. And really what I've been doing is I'm trying to find where, if I'm getting any false knock, at what percentage am I finding that at? And again, it's just test and tune. And even at 15% on straight 93, I'm getting 0 knock retard. So I'm going to keep knocking that number back. From known safe values, I'm going to keep making it even safer and safer and safer until I find that number where I know that it's getting false knock, and then I'm going to add a couple of more percentage points to that and call it good. I'm going to keep the knock sensors still very near stock value. And that's the other thing, it never suffered when it had the knock sensors at the stock value. So again, it's just getting an idea for what the car likes. Dr. Div's saying, damn near exactly what I have fuel system wise. Love my fuel system. I went with a triple Walbro 450s for my big engine, plenty of fuel. Absolutely. Especially if you're going with E85, that Echo Ocho Cinco, man, you got to have the pumps for that. Symphonic's asking, have you seen George's blog? White 2019 Camaro SS runs the same track as you go to. Really nice YouTube channel. He was having some trouble with his trans tune. Told him to look you up. I have not seen him, haven't heard from him either. James Hutch is saying, we'll be making a trip to Pikes, Houston. Here I come. Want it fast and reliable. Street machine, sleeper wagon. That's the way to do it, man. Hit them up. They'll get you taken care of. Depends on what all you want to do to it, but they can handle it from soup to nuts, man, so don't worry about it. Might take them a little bit of time, but it's that meticulous attention to detail that makes it right and that makes the difference. Dr. Diff can do the same for you as well. In fact, he's asking, you just adding some fuel into the PE tables on your comment. Yeah, I'm on the power enrichment tables because mine runs on air charge. So stoichiometric values 0722 on the Hellcat, which is when you back map it is actually 6%. It's going to show 6% richer on the gauge in the car, so you have to factor that 6% in. But I am at the factory setting is actually 0110, which is a command AFR of 12.7. If you can believe that, these cars are actually from this factory tuned on a 12.7. I'm commanding 1240 at high load ranges. Christian McVeigh is asking, are you excited for the new Bronco? Oh, shit. No, I'm not. I'm not, and I said it, I'm not. The reason why I'm not is because my understanding is being based on the Ranger platform. If that would have been based on the F-150 platform, I would be sitting there doing this in a dealership waiting for me to get my hands on one. It'd have a 5-liter, it would get a supercharger or turbos, and I would have a nasty Bronco, but unfortunately that's not going to be the case. I believe, again, it's going to be built on the Ranger platform, which is, I mean, it's got the same feel. It's going to have the same feel as a Bronco 2, not really a true Bronco, unless they do something about the engine. I'm just not going to get that excited about it. Dr. Div saying I removed 20% off the knock sensors, but I blended also. I am, if you're talking about blend, are you talking about interpolating between the side to side on that, or are you talking about blending fuel? I was blending fuel. In fact, I got a little overly aggressive with my mix, and these cars on stock timing values don't like 104 octane. I can tell you that for sure. But yeah, no, I'm going to be going back and just dropping mine down to like 10% over and calling it good. Adding a little bit of fuel, I think, is going to give me that cushion that I need. And the 10%, I say 10 to 15% will knock out any false knock that you might be running into. And I think that'll be good. I think that'll put me right where I need to be. Toby Ram is asking, are you going to add any power or leave Revlon at 707? Here's the thing. I am not going to be putting pulleys on this car. I know that kind of flies in the face, and it's heresy. It's YouTube heresy, right? I mean, how could you not be putting nitrous and pulleys and all this other stuff on the car? Not going to be doing that. There is only one thing that I would do to the car to get any more power out of it, but that will probably never happen. It'd be putting a different supercharger on the car, and I really like the IHI supercharger on this thing. It does great, and I don't see any reason really to change it. So as far as throwing more power at it, I guess the question is, what do I get for my hard-earned dollar? What does a bunch of monies get me? When we're talking about making more power, you have to remember that at this power level, making another 100 horsepower isn't going to cut it at all. You won't really, I hate to say this, but you won't really even notice another 100 horsepower in this car. I mean, yeah, it pulls a little bit better on the big end, but man, I'd rather have something that's just a blast to drive, and that's really more what I'm looking for with that 309 gear. Make it a bit more lively to drive. That's really more to the point. To make more power, you've got to remember that more is not always better. And I always bring up the shit sandwich analogy. I mean, I'm going to make you a shit sandwich. Do you want more or less filling? All right, that's what more can get you sometimes. And to be honest with you, I've driven so many 1,000 horsepower cars that weren't a lot of fun to drive. And I don't want to go that route. There's very few that I've actually ever really liked. In fact, there's only 2 that I've ever driven that made substantial horsepower that I actually liked, and both of them had stock superchargers on them, and both of them were on E85. So since I'm not going to be going E85, and I'm going to stick with 93 octane, or at least 93 octane and a mild mix of race gas here and there when I go to the drag strip, I want to keep the car as close to stock in terms of power as I can keep it. And that's why I'm going the route that I'm going. Keep the car stock, make the tune safe, hot rod the transmission a little bit, and see if we can put the car into these low numbers on an extremely safe tune, and do it all while running the stock catalytic converters. Because to me, I think that's important. I want to prove that it can be done, and not that others haven't already done it, but I want to show that you can put these things in a very serious ET bracket, all the while being completely and totally emissions compliant. And again, to me, that means something. Let's see. Boosted Motorsports asking, let's hear your take on what's next from Dodge with the new Charger Challenger platform coming and the Viper replacement car that can actually take a turn. Well, I'll tell you this, the LX platform will be revised. It'll be a little bit lighter and not that far removed from what you're seeing behind me. There'll be another facelift type of upgrade, but the platform really isn't going to change too much. Dodge, or I should say FCA, extended the licensing agreement with the LX platform, I believe, through 2022. So at least until then, the LX platform or derivative thereof is still going to be prevalent, at least, with whatever changes that they're going to make happening in 2022. Now, as far as a Viper replacement, the cat's out of the bag on this, but at one point, I know that Dodge was looking at a V8 powered Viper or Viper-esque type of a product. And that's not because anybody's got anything against the V10, other than the fact that economic viability is an incredibly important part of making those cars. I mean, I hate to say it, but they do have to turn a profit on those things. That's why the Viper costs so much money. And you know, I've told the story about a fairly long visit that I had with one of the marketing guys with FCA and the SRT group, and it was a pretty enlightening conversation about, and this has been a few years ago, but a fairly enlightening conversation about where FCA was, where SRT was, where SRT was headed, and basically the whole the mindset moving forward with products like the Viper, products like the Challenger and Charger, as well as the SUV market with the Durango and the now known as the Trackhawk. Basically Hellcat the world, or SRT the world at that point, and that's great, that's awesome, but if they're not turning a profit, and you can't pay people to talk about them. And the biggest issue that they were running into was people weren't buying the Viper, period. It was way too expensive. In fact, when they started cutting the price on the Viper, they were basically doing it just to liquidate inventory, which is a bummer because it killed the value for the car in general. I mean, if you paid $125,000 for a car that somebody is now able to buy for, say, 87 or 90, I mean, you've literally just given up all of that value of your vehicle. So left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But anyway, those are some of the things that I know of that have been talked about. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. Johnny Peters, man, thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution to the cause, man. Thank you so very much. It means a ton to me. Didn't put anything in there, but as far as a comment or a question, but I appreciate the contribution, man. Thank you very much. It means a ton, man. It truly does. Without you guys, can't bring you all the cool stuff, man. So thank you all very much. Content is this stuff gets expensive, especially when fuel pressure sensors go out that cost that much money. That's crazy. I will say this though, I now have a Schrader valve on my fuel rail, so there's that. But thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Dr. Div saying, I've got plenty of pump and dual regulators and fuel injector connection 127s. That's the way to go. White Knuckle saying, what up, Brian? Where have you been, brother? I like it. Got the okay thumbs up and the two arms. I dig it. Man, I have been booked. I have been either working on this thing, at the track trying to collect data. Work's been crazy, which is great. Great problem to have. So absolutely had me tied up, but I appreciate that. Always good to hang out and chat. Chris McVeigh saying, I feel you on the engine for the Bronco. That said, my understanding is that the Ranger is a pretty decent off-roader, and it is. At least it's an alternative to the Wrangler, and it gives some healthy competition. Very true there, too. I think Wrangler, man, I hate to say it, Wrangler and Gladiator have gotten a little bit complacent. I feel like that platform has gotten to the point now where it needs an upgrade in power, man. It's driving me nuts. And I mean nuts. If you guys have never driven one of the newer Wranglers, they actually run pretty good with the 8-speed, but they do need a little bit more oomph. I will say that. Let's see. Hey G saying, hey, it's Chris, my brother. What up? Joining my program and getting the 309. I like it. It worked for me. It's going to rock for you. Orange Crush loved it. Absolutely, Orange Crush loved it. Oh, damn. Hang on a second. Dr. Diff, man, I appreciate that contribution to the cause. They need to talk to you soon on the TSP thing. I love your channel and all the advice. Can't wait to take you for a ride in the truck. Can't wait to go for a ride in that truck. You're a good dude, and props. I'm thankful for it, man. I appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words, brother. Really do. Keep doing you. Bedtime. Good show on it, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Very much so. And, but yeah, call me tomorrow, man. We'll chat. But yeah, Chris, I'll be picking that gear up tomorrow. Cool story behind that, too. I think you're going to like that. Dr. Div saying, yes, interpolation. We were talking about the knock sensor voltage and, pulling out or adding in voltage to kill some of that sensitivity. Kind of some tuner chat. Interpolation just means that you are blending your percentage values in a specific direction, up, down, however, to blend to. In other words, if you brought up a value, you're blending that value out on the table, so to speak, to put it in a 3D form. But yeah, be on the look. Give me a shout, Chris, by the way. I will tell you more about how that 309 came to be. It's actually pretty cool. And I am looking forward to that. Let's see. Sean E. checking out, saying, good night, everybody. I need to get a good night's sleep so I can get my Hellcat ready for the track tomorrow after work. I like it. All I need is an 11.2 and over 122 miles an hour to get my personal best. I think you will cover that in your density altitude for sure. White Knuckles asking, what do you think about the GT500 guys saying how the horsepower number is wheel, 760 wheel? I don't buy it. No, it's not. Okay, so he was probably talking, the guy I think was talking about the parasitic loss of the supercharger, which in this world we live in with positive displacement superchargers, they have a very high parasitic loss. So whenever you put together a combination with any supercharger, turbocharger, what have you, they all have a certain amount of parasitic loss. In the case of the positive displacement on the Hellcat, I think it takes about 100 horsepower to drive that supercharger. I'm pretty sure the Mustang's about the same, and so they're going, oh, it really makes more power. Well, yeah, I guess you could say it really does make more power, but then it gets sucked out of it to drive the thing that's making it make more power. Don't get it. But this is what happens when, a vocal nitwit gets a hold of some information and, runs through the town screaming at the top of their lungs. That's how these rumors get up and running. Let's see. Toby Ram is saying the only vehicle left to SRT is the Ram, but that'll probably never happen. Actually, it is going to happen. And that's going to be the Hellcat powered truck that's coming very soon. In fact, it's already made it. It's been greenlit. I just don't know when it's going to be released. Boost Motorsports saying, yeah, man, I agree with everything you said about the Viper. I had the ProCharger Ram on my channel and still have the Viper ACR. Hit me up after. We'll do a collab video going, yeah, hit me up, man. Absolutely. I miss my Vipers, man. I really do. I'll tell you what, there are times when I really miss my Viper, and that's just when I would hop in those cars, point that sucker west, and just roll. I miss that. I don't miss the stupid stuff I used to do. And it's funny because these guys talk about roll racing. Not to harass you guys that do roll racing, but for guys that say, yeah, I'm running 40 to 160, and like 160 is a big number. For you guys that don't get it or don't know, back in the day, I was kind of part of the crew that made a lot of this stuff famous. It kind of made a bit of anyway, we ran 100 to 200. Our race didn't start until you hit triple digits. So when guys are talking about, well, we're from a 40 roll, how will it do on a 40 roll? It's irrelevant. I mean, we would spool them up to 100 miles an hour, nitrous system armed, everything basically set to kill, map the throttle, and most of us would break loose at 100 miles an hour, by the way. on our way to 200 miles an hour. Now, was that smart? No, it's probably the stupidest thing I've ever done a lot of times. But that's back when you could get away with it. And down here, we had some areas where we just had plenty of room where we could get away with it too. And cars that would hit that number fairly quickly. And the cars will get there even more quickly nowadays. But, you know, we had suspensions that were set up for it. We were kind of acclimed to it already, which means we were just used to it. Not smart by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know. I hear roll racing and I just go, aw, that's cute. 160. You realize I click better than that. Never mind. Data logging is its own thing. But yeah, talking about 160 like it's fast. Chris Gervais saying, dude, no doubt I heard rumor of a diesel-powered Wrangler when the JL first debuted. You heard any progress on that? Not a lot, although they've been kind of hinting at it for some time. I just don't know if the North American market would take to it as well. I know it'd be a hit overseas, though. Basically, everywhere that's not America would probably fall in love with that thing, but realistically speaking, I don't know that they're going to move forward with it. There's some other engines that I've heard that were being tickled right now by FCA, truck engines mainly. One of them is an inline 6 for the Ram 1500, inline 6 with a turbo to take basically to be an intermediate upgrade engine for that platform. You know, probably in the 350 horsepower range with about 400 pound-feet of torque. I've heard of that, but haven't really heard of anything coming of it lately. Stuff like that is in some ways more impressive to me because it signifies and it shows kind of a different way of looking at things, and it kind of goes along with the trend of inline engines being a bit more popular nowadays. God's penis saying, will we ever get story time with B. Mason where you just tell wild stories from your younger years? Oh, I'll do that every once in a while. SRT 392 Rubicon needs to happen. For sure it does. Okay, I'll tell you a quick story. So back in the day, we were, again, being big into roll racing. You know, we would typically get together around 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning at different areas that we knew we could get away with it at. It would be obviously way out, typically in the middle of nowhere when we would do these types of things. And it wasn't very common, by the way, for cars to pop back then. This is a lot of these cars were tuned and were run on tunes that were done on the street, and all of us were running race gas. It wasn't a 93 octane thing. The E85 didn't even exist. The guys, we didn't have anybody running alcohol or methanol or anything like that. So, but anyway, we had a guy that had a fairly competitive Viper. I mean, it would run with pretty much everything, not necessarily with cars like mine, which are heads cam, but you know, my own ported intake, you know, a bunch of other, anyway, but it was fast as hell. And anyway, he was running a single stage 300 shot, which was a riot. I think he would hit it at about, it was a progressive kit, one of the earlier progressive kits. No, two-stage 300 total, 200 shot on the initial hit. No, 100 shot on the initial hit, 200 on the second stage. And that's really more to keep it stable at higher mile an hour. I got to try to remember his combination. Anyway, long story short, that car caught on fire. And it caught on fire at about 180-ish miles an hour. And the only thing I remember about this was he was running in the pack that I was running in, and I remember in my rearview mirror seeing this thing go woof. And it looked like a warning light. And so I see this warning light thing. I'm going, what the hell? And yeah, it was his car lighting up. And what had happened was he had a fuel solenoid. I guess there was an issue either with the solenoid itself or with the way that it was the lines were run or something like that. Anyway, had a fuel leak that whooshed the car, and that's not a fun story, but it's just one of those things that it happens. And when you're talking about hot rodding stuff and really trying to, get greedy with something, you get into a rush when you're working on these things, and that's the kind of crap that can happen. So there's a quick story for you, and it's Viper related. It's fairly relevant to what we were talking about earlier. So I had the same thing, by the way, happen to a Lightning. Buddy of mine's Lightning that this is actually a pretty funny one. I think I've told the story a couple of times, but nice, cool evening. My buddy of mine owned the truck. I ended up buying the truck from him later on, but at any rate, we're hauling ass down the highway, and went from it was a 4-speed automatic, went from 3rd gear to 4th gear, which if you've ever been around Lightnings, you'll know that is the absolute worst thing you can do for that engine, because it's a significant load hit, and that's when they window blocks. Well, the truck windowed the block, blew number 4, and number 5 actually came back. Okay, that load let go. Basically, both rods did, blew out the side of the block. Well, here's the thing: it still had 6 cylinders that were still fully functional. And long story short, it's pumping fuel still through those 2 injectors into the crankcase. Well, the crankcase is ventilating the atmosphere. That hits the exhaust, catches on fire. Now the truck is going down the freeway at about 140, and it looks like the space shuttle is going down the freeway, because all the fire coming out from underneath it with the oil and the fuel and everything else getting mixed together. So it evacuates the crankcase in terms of lubricant, no oil left in this thing. But that truck ran, let me think about this. That truck made it to my house, and my house from where we blew it up was probably, I would say, a solid 5 to 7 miles away from where that truck blew up. This guy's so long ago. Anyway, that's another fun, this one was mine, or hit my, I was involved in this explosion. So yeah, epic things do take place. And then James Hutch is saying, good night, Autoholic family. I like it. You guys take care and keep it between the ditches. Peace, man. I love it. Well, man, guys, we are coming in over 2 hours. I want to thank all of y'all for hanging out with me. I will keep everybody posted as to the progress. We'll get this gear put in the car and begin the tuning process anew. We'll get this thing sorted out at the drag strip and see how well it responds to this gear. And if Chris's car is any indication, we're going to be picking up a little bit of ET. Christian's saying that is a wrap. Adios. I like it. Doc Diff saying good night. Toby Rama saying see ya. Kim is out saying thanks for the vids. I love it. Jebediah Morales got the fist bump. I like it. All of y'all have a fantastic week. Hope to see y'all soon on the next one. That is a wrap. Adios.